Following false claims by the U.S. president about the complete destruction of Iran's air defense system, an American hostile fighter jet was shot down in central Iranian airspace by a newly developed advanced aerospace defense system operated by the IRGC, under the control of the country's integrated air defense network. The jet was completely destroyed, and further search operations are still ongoing.
You can't fight and win a war if you tell your adversary what you are willing to do or what you are not willing to do, to include boots on the ground. Our adversary right now thinks there are 15 different ways we could come at them with boots on the ground. And guess what? There are. So if we needed to, we could execute those options on behalf of the President of the United States and this department. Or maybe we don't have to use them at all. Maybe negotiations work, or maybe there's a different approach. But the point is to be unpredictable in that. Certainly not let anybody know what you're willing to do or not do.
As Iran strikes U.S. air power, questions rise over whether Mojtaba's war is sealing Hegseth's fate. Iran delivers a double blow. U.S. forces take hits abroad while pressure mounts on Hegseth back in Washington. With U.S. jets down and casualties mounting, Hegseth faces an escalating battle for political survival in Washington. Amid war tensions, Hegseth's move against a top general fuels questions about leadership under pressure. After high-profile firings, speculation grows that Hegseth could be next as Trump reshapes his wartime cabinet. Recent dismissals of Kristi Noem and Bondi have sent fresh waves of uncertainty through Donald Trump's administration, signaling that no one in the inner circle is truly safe. Amid the ongoing war with Iran, U.S. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth now reportedly fears that his own job may be at risk, even as he tries to project strength from the Pentagon. According to reports, Hegseth's alleged paranoia has only intensified after these high-profile firings, with insiders describing a climate of suspicion and internal score settling. In a dramatic move, Hegseth reportedly pressured Army Chief of Staff General Randy to resign in the middle of the war, with no clear public explanation for the shakeup. Sources say Hegseth has grown increasingly afraid that Army Secretary Dan Driscoll could be tapped to replace him, a fear that is now driving some of his most drastic and controversial decisions. A source close to Trump admin said, and I quote, "Hegseth has got a big conflict with Driscoll. And he's been told by the White House he can't fire Driscoll, at least for the moment. Hegseth is very concerned about being fired, and he knows that Driscoll is one of the top contenders, or a natural contender, to succeed him. So what Pete has been doing is taking anyone he perceives to be close with Driscoll and going after them. And this is the latest and most spectacular example of that." Unquote. There is no indication that Donald Trump plans to dismiss Pete Hegseth or Dan Driscoll, but the stakes are rising sharply. Recent cabinet shakeups have intensified internal power struggles, as Trump attempts to project strength during the ongoing Iran war. Meanwhile, Iran mocked the United States on X, spotlighting ousted military officials with provocative regime change imagery. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth reportedly grew increasingly paranoid over Driscoll's role in Ukraine negotiations. Tensions escalated further when Dan Driscoll was appointed lead negotiator in Ukraine by Vice President J.D. Vance. The firing of the Army's top general now risks undermining Trump's message that the Iran war is progressing successfully. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth's insecurity reportedly deepened after Signalgate, a 2025 blunder that exposed sensitive information. Signalgate refers to a major security incident involving senior officials in Donald Trump's administration, including Hegseth himself. Officials reportedly used the Signal app on personal devices to discuss sensitive military strikes against Houthi targets. Sources say Hegseth's aides failed to contain the fallout, instead worsening his growing anxiety and internal distrust. More recently, Hegseth declined to clarify whether the United States would deploy ground troops against Iran.
Jillian.
Thanks, Mr. Secretary. The U.S. and Iran appear right now publicly to disagree about whether there are these negotiations ongoing. What impact does that have on military strategy? Does it have any bearing at all?
So on the talks, I can tell you, having been with Steve and Jared and the Vice President and Marco and many others yesterday, they are very real. They are ongoing. They're active and I think gaining strength. And we appreciate that. as I said in my remarks, we would much prefer to get a deal. If Iran was willing to relinquish material they have and ambitions they have, open this, great. That's the goal. We don't want to have to do more militarily than we have to. But I didn't mean it flippantly when I said, in the meantime, we'll negotiate with bombs. Our job is to ensure that we compel Iran to realize that this new regime, this regime in charge, is in a better place if they make that deal. And so we'll continue. We're working hand in hand, but the primary effort is a deal. We want that deal to be accomplished if at all possible. If not, then we're prepared to continue.
Just on the Strait of Hormuz, is opening the strait an essential objective to Operation Epic Fury, or is that the job of those other countries? And then secondly, without asking you to comment on things that you can't talk about, what is your message to Americans who love the president and strongly believe in him, but are very worried about this notion of boots on the ground?
Ultimately, I think the president's truth this morning lays that out very well, that this Strait of Hormuz issue, which we've set the conditions for success, and we will make sure Iran knows that very clearly, is not just a United States of America problem set. We've been willing to lead. President Trump's led the entire time, but it's not just us. So ultimately, I think other countries should pay attention when the president speaks. He's proven that when he speaks, he means something. And he's pointing out, you might want to start learning how to fight for yourself. It's something some of us have been saying for quite some time. You can't just have flags, you have to have formations. You can't just have a few ships, you have enough to affect change. Those things matter in a dangerous world with ascendant adversaries. That's why the chairman's talking about our industrial base. As far as President Trump and boots on the ground, I don't understand why the base, which they have already, they understand, wouldn't have faith in his ability to execute on this. Look at his track record of pursuing peace through strength, America first outcomes. What he's simply saying, and it's exactly true, and I've said from this podium too, we're not going to foreclose any option. You can't fight and win a war if you tell your adversary what you are willing to do or what you are not willing to do, to include boots on the ground. Our adversary right now thinks there are 15 different ways we could come at them with boots on the ground. And guess what? There are. So if we needed to, we could execute those options on behalf of the President of the United States and this department. Or maybe we don't have to use them at all. Maybe negotiations work, or maybe there's a different approach. But the point is to be unpredictable in that. Certainly not let anybody know what you're willing to do or not do. But if anybody has internalized the lessons of Iraq and Afghanistan, as the first one, President Trump, to call them out for what they are, he's not going to repeat those lessons. And I think I've been very clear about that from the podium.
Yes. And is the United States still committed to NATO's collective defense?
And as far as NATO is concerned, that's a decision that will be left to the president. But I'll just say a lot has been laid bare. A lot has been shown to the world about what our allies would be willing to do for the United States of America when we undertake an effort of this scope on behalf of the free world. These are missiles that don't even range the United States of America. They range allies and others. And yet when we ask for additional assistance or simple access basing and overflight, we get questions or roadblocks or hesitations. And the president's pointing out, you don't have much of an alliance if you have countries that are not willing to stand with you when you need them. He's simply pointing that out, and ultimately it'll be his decision of what that looks like after this is complete.